Hey everyone. On the most recent Yooka-Laylee episode of the Kongversation, Mitchell Wolf incorrectly said that the fast food mini Game Boy toys you could get in a kid's meal came from Taco Bell. In actuality, they originated from Burger King as part of their Freudian Big Kids meal. I would like to take this time to apologize to big kids everywhere. The early 90s Burger King Kids Club mascot, Wheels, so named because of his paralysis, and Carlos Alazraqui, the voice of the Taco Bell Chihuahua. To help Mitchell atone for his profound ignorance, while I'm out in Los Angeles for E3, I'll track down his native SoCal ass and force him to eat a Burger King Big Kids meal from 2002, so he can properly learn where those Game Boy toys came from. Thank you.
Of course, I think all turducken is sexy. That's how I lost my virginity at Christmas dinner 1996.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell, and for this week, I'm joined once again by Josh Wallen from Off of the Geek Critique.
Thank you, Hyle. Hello, everyone. Guess who's back once again? The Geek Critique.
Yes, and it is nice to have you here, Josh. It's nice to have you on this episode I'm trying to get done before E3. And this is probably ill-advised on my part considering how busy I am and how DK Vine is right now. But the OCD center of my brain wanted to wrap up the actual Yooka-Laylee world discussions before E3 hits, because E3 is kind of like this cosmic reset button as far as the video game news calendar goes. So I thought I've got to get at the very least, all the Yooka-Laylee world discussions on the other side of E3. And then post E3, it's kind of a slate cleaning, a palate cleanser. So thank you for doing this and just doing it right up on E3's backside at that. So,
dude, you are an inspiration to me. I wish I had your drive and your work ethic. Do you know how many episodes of the Geek Critique have been released since the last time I was on this show?
0, because I've been waiting for them.
Exactly, 0.
Although, considering you make practically, if not feature length, then feature quality every and I'm just doing this hacky shtick every.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's like, I'm not calling your content hacky shtick, of course, but I was like, okay, Metroid Prime, how hard can that be? How long can that game be?
Well, you're doing Metroid Prime. You're also doing Retro's Donkey Kong games as well.
Yeah, all the retro games.
Yeah,
they're a little bit more dense than than what I've done up to this point.
And then, of course, we're probably going to find out what Retro's next game is this E3. So,
that's a very good point that I hadn't even considered yet. Probably should have tried to get this season done before now.
Although, considering, and we're going to be saving this for the E3 preview episode, which will be coming just in a day or two when you're listening to this, apparently Nintendo's Direct, or whatever the hell they're calling it, is only going to be 30 minutes long this year. So I'm kind of wondering how much they're actually going to be showing off at all.
Yeah, I heard that this morning. I haven't really had a chance to compare to like their past E3 press conferences. Are they? Is 30 minutes kind of unusual or something?
It seems brief, but I can't really recall. I mean, at this point in time, the only thing they're promising is Super Mario Odyssey's news. So, I mean, they're not going into E3 promising just one game like they did last year. But I don't know. And as somebody who isn't really going into E3 with a lot of expectations on the Nintendo side this year, I really can't be bothered either way, but
I can't be bothered.
yes, Ringo Starr. Sorry, Sgt. Pepper's on my brain right now because of the 50th anniversary release. But and granted, we reference Ringo practically every week. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Nintendo, but we'll get into that next time. Sorry if you have any thoughts on that, Josh.
No, dude, go ahead. That's
I'm looking
that's
at
not
the
the point of this episode.
ticking clock. My God. I'm looking at the ticking clock and I realize in 12 hours I have to be in the forest looking for bears as per E3 tradition dictates. And I'm like hopped up on caffeine to keep my heart going and or to eventually cause it to fail. I haven't really decided yet. And I'm just thinking, okay, Hyle, keep this episode as brief as possible, and already we're just going on tangents, and it's just breathe deep. It's gonna be okay. E3.
So yeah, the Power Rangers. I wanted to talk to you about this for the past couple of weeks now. No.
Yes. No, it's great to have you
got
back.
Enough on your plate, man.
I thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show last time, and I was like, I've got to get Josh on as soon as possible, and you actually asked to be on one of these Yooka-Laylee episodes, specifically requesting World 5. So I thought, well, we'll wrap up the actual world discussions with Josh then. That'll be a nice treat.
And I actually have a story that we can sort of use to transition into talking about the actual world. But
well, hold on, Josh. Hold on.
If you wanted to do something else first.
Well, you know, I've got to do some due diligence because this is the busiest time of year for DK Vine, and I would be remiss if I did not bring up, really quick, our Patreon. Yes, support DK Vine on Patreon at dkvine.com/you got it Patreon. Not you got it not slash you got it Patreon, just /Patreon.
I'm typing that in. I'm really confused.
Yeah. dkvine.com/Patreon. Basically, your generous donations, that sounds pathetic. Your support helps fund things like us going out to E3 and covering all the news. You probably don't exclusively. You're not like me, where you exclusively only care about Rare and Donkey Kong. But in my head, people like that exist, and I'm catering to them. So we will be covering everything from Rare. Playtonic is actually not going to be out there this year, but they are hard at work on a Yooka-Laylee patch, and we'll be talking a little bit about that this week as well.
God, I can't believe they haven't brought it to the Switch yet. Like, come on, do they even care about their fans?
And, of course, Nintendo will be out there, but who knows what they'll actually be showing off. But we'll be there for any Donkey Kong relevant news that does crop up, even if it's just more of him and Diddy riding ponies. So, yeah, your generous support helps fund things like that, and in return will bring you lots of coverage. And you know, if you really want to go all in, $25 a month, you can join the Inner Circle. And some people just join the Inner Circle for the month of E3, and that's fine. And we'll be bringing you lots of exclusive content just for the Inner Circle, stuff that doesn't really like merit like a YouTube video or a site news update or a forum posting. Stuff like, you guys want to just see how E3 show floor is laid out? Come on, we'll show you. And stuff you wouldn't really see through like IG and whatnot. Just we want to make it feel like you're there with us on the E3 show floor. And that's one cool thing about the infrastructure we have set up that Patreon helps make possible. So check that out. This is the most magical time of year for DK Vine and the most exhausting for me. And I'm going to get sick, by the way. I just want to point that out. I am going to be deathly ill by next Friday. So I put my body on the line for this nonsense. And I don't regret it. My wife probably regrets it a little bit, but I don't regret it. No, she's actually very supportive. I don't know why, because I would have left my ass already. But DKVine.com/Patreon. Am I rambling, Josh? Am I rambling?
I'm just letting this go, man.
Okay.
There's been a couple times where I was like, I could jump in here or here, but no, I want to see where he takes this.
Okay, I need to slow down because I feel like my heart's going to burst out of my chest, like from off of the movie Alien, or from off the movie Aliens, or from off of the movie Alien 3, or from off the movie Alien Resurrection, or from
now,
off
Hyle,
the movie...
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
The company of like-minded weirdos inside of the Inner Circle chat, that's wonderful and all, but what if I want a little more bang for supporting you guys at the $25 level?
Well, we are going to have exclusive patron t-shirts. Design is going to be revealed. We're actually still fine-tuning that, but they will be shipping out in August. So that's an exciting thing we are rolling out. We're refurbishing our Patreon page as we speak. Still fine-tuning it, but yes, Patreon t-shirts.
Did you not want to announce that yet? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I spent the other day redoing it. I just haven't gotten the new video up yet. But yes, it's up there if you haven't stumbled across it. So like I said, designed to be announced, TBA, and that they will be shipping in August. So nice little bonus. We are also looking into doing a merch store. Merch is what the cool kids call merchandise these days, and that will be independent of the Patreon. But so anybody can have at what's going to be in the merchandise store. But we will be rolling that out sometime this year. So exciting times for DK Vine. Upwards and onwards. And we keep expanding well beyond our means or the time we have to devote to anything. We are going to burn out like a dying sun.
Well, I don't want that to happen. I like this site. Please don't do that.
I'm just kidding. I was referring to, again, my heart. So anyway.
You can do DK Vine without that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I'll have the Dick Cheney robot heart. That'll be fun. Then I can finally hunt Nick. What? The entire purpose of the DK Vine staff is just so I can have victims, because I'm a vegetarian solely because I exclusively hunt man, the most dangerous game. So I'm just basically grooming all of them to eventually have live hunts.
I don't think I can continue being on the Kongversation now. This is getting a little bit. This is getting a little bit dangerous.
You haven't signed the staff contract. It's fine. In the fine print, it's that you will be hunted eventually. But you at home don't have to worry about me shooting you in the face. Do not worry. So, with that being said, this is the time of year to join the DK Vine forum. Never been a better time to join at E3 time. So check that out.
This is the time of year when that is particularly true.
That's right. DKVine.com/forum. By the time you listen to this, E3 2017 discussion will be live, and that is just it's the time when the forum is hopping 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or as the cool kids say, in addition to merch, 24/7. See, I am hip. I am up on what they say on the street.
Dude, I just turned 29. I know. I'm getting there.
Let me show you how out of touch I am. So, last time we had our Diddy Kong character witness episode, or in correct parlance, character witness : Diddy Kong. And somebody called in and did apparently they were referencing the cartoon Courage the Cowardly Dog. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's it. That's
okay.
it. I remember that.
I didn't know because I've never seen it because I'm old. Like that was a thing just past the point where I stopped keeping in touch with cartoons and what's new on Cartoon Network and stuff like that. So I didn't know. It wasn't a Rocko's Modern Life joke, so it flew over my head. And I realize as time marches on and I continue doing this, we are going to run into that more and more, and I'm going to be further shamed So, yeah.
I never felt like I was particularly like up on pop culture in the first place, though. So really, it's not that much of a difference for me. Courage the Cowardly Dog, though, it was something that was like I barely was just barely still vaguely in the age group, but I was never a big fan of it in the first place.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody just like a year younger than me and below loves SpongeBob, though. My God.
That's the thing. Like, I briefly missed the SpongeBob thing, and I feel like because I'm usually the oldest person in any age group I fraternize with, like, even by just a year, like, for whatever reason. So I think when I was reincarnated, I got, like, stuck in the queue line or something. So, yeah, like SpongeBob. I completely miss SpongeBob. And I know enough about SpongeBob where I can usually, like, I know the characters, but oh my God, this is a tangent, isn't it?
What are we doing?
Oh, shit. There's no time this week. So yeah, join the DK Vine forum at dkvine.com/forum, and you can tell me, Hyle, you're hopelessly out of touch. You don't even know Courage, the Cowardly Dog, and I can just go back to the old person's home and eat my pudding cup and cry in my adult diaper. So that's something you could do on the DK Vine forum. Don't forget to follow us. Subscribe to us on YouTube, dkvine.com/YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, dkvine.com/Facebook.
Do you need me to take the rest of this?
What's that?
Do you need me to take the rest of the due diligence?
Oh, no, I got it. dkvine.com/Twitter is our Twitter feed, Twitter page, Twitter account. I don't know what they call it. But guess what? I run it all. I'm doing Twitter right now. I'm doing Facebook, YouTube. That's all on me. And call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. That's 8463. Or as the jingle goes, to reach us by cell or landline, call 1-202-630 and the word. And you can call that.
I haven't heard that jingle enough to memorize that one yet.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Yeah, you'll get there. So call that number to reach the DK Vine hotline, and we'll play your call in the conversation. Yeah, do that. Do that, please. And as far as the conversation goes, subscribe to us on iTunes and give us a rating while you're there. And you know what? Tell your friends about the show. And also, tell Fabio to get in touch with us so we can have him on the conversation.
What?
Fabio. We're trying to get Fabio on the conversation.
Okay.
Why not? I mean, it's something we started because it just felt appropriate at the time. And we can have a nice discussion about the 90s, like Fabio and Donkey Kong Country and the time he got hit by a bird.
Yeah, that's mostly what's done here on this show.
That's right. So, yeah. If you know Fabio, tell Fabio to get in touch with us so he can be on the conversation. And, of course, hashtag bring back the spiders. Okay, Josh. So, Yooka-Laylee.
So you mentioned like 45 minutes ago or so,
yes,
before due diligence began, that I specifically requested to be on the World 5 episode of the conversation. And the reason I did that is it's kind of an interesting story. I was playing Yooka-Laylee, like, every couple of days I'd put a couple hours into it, really, explore a world. And then I got to World 5. And World 5 is kind of interesting in that it seems like Playtonic did a good job of sort of breaking up the way that the level expansions work. And World 5's World 5's is a little bit unique because you go in there and there's really not a whole lot you can even do until you expand it. And we'll get to that in a second. But but the sake of the story is that I did everything I could do without expanding it. Went to Skype, was like, "Hey, Hyle, this is the one I need to be on."
Yeah, that was a surprise. But I'm glad you clarified why you wanted to be on this episode. But before that, before we get to that, I do want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Yooka-Laylee up until this point?
Okay. What's kind of interesting, I suppose, is that after asking you if I could be on this episode, which I did, I don't know, about a month ago, I guess. I actually, I sort of got busy doing other things, and I hadn't played it since then.
Yeah.
Now, my first impressions of Yooka-Laylee, when I'd just been playing it for a couple of days, and even up to reaching World 5, were that I'd never felt such a disconnect between what some of the critics were saying about a game and what I thought of it.
Right.
Usually, even if it's a case where I like something a lot better or I dislike something a lot worse than the general consensus is, I can at least see where people are coming from. But with Yooka-Laylee, there for a while especially, it was just like I'd open it up and I was having such a good time. I would specifically try to trigger things and try to do things that other people said were ruining the game for them, and I'd be like, I don't understand where they're coming from. Most notably with stuff like the controls, because I've heard people be very, very critical of the way that Yooka and Laylee control, and I'm just like, I don't see it.
Right.
And that's not to say that I think that everybody who criticizes this game is in any way lying about their experiences. It was just something that I was having trouble connecting to.
Yeah.
And then I didn't play it for a month. I came back and I completely lost. You start out at the bottom of Ivory Towers, and it took me a worrying amount of time to find World 5 again. And I think by removing myself from the game for a while and then coming back to it, I was better able to understand, empathize, and in some ways, and in some cases anyway, agree with Yooka-Laylee's detractors.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, what was it? Just the fact that, like, you no longer had that... Because this is a game that kind of builds on itself. You learn moves gradually. You progress further in the overworld hub. Was it just no longer having that immediate knowledge of what had happened previously, and then going into it blind and having no muscle memory? Or
no, I don't think it was so much that. Let's see. How do I sort of put this? I think that, and you probably feel this way too, we are so starved for a game like this that
just a bit.
That the fact that we got it and it is as good as it is, because I do still definitely think that Yooka-Laylee is a good game. It's a very good game, but we're so starved for it that finally having it, it's not like we were blind to this stuff, it just didn't matter because it was such a magical experience. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, for me, I can empathize with some of the things the critics are complaining about. Ultimately, though, I don't feel like it's necessarily game-breaking nor really that awful. It's... I can recognize Yooka-Laylee's flaws, but for me, they're
it's
inconsequential.
Like it's been out for long enough. It's like it's been out for long enough now that it's a little bit easier to get some perspective on it.
Yeah. Although with this patch announcement, it seems like they're going to be correcting a lot of the minor nuisances that kind of have been building up as far as contributing to some of the more negative critical viewpoints.
And I'm really happy to see them doing that.
Yeah,
that just got announced today as of when we're recording.
Right, and there's quite a bit, and I don't even know if we're going to go through all of the updates on this episode, but they are fixing things like the cameras, some of the, I don't know, like...
well, there's going to be a section on the pause menu now where you can look at a list of all your moves. And that's really going to... And that was another problem I had. Like, I had to find Trouser and be like, okay, what can I do again? What did I recently get?
For me, I would the freebie moves he would teach you in Ivory Towers. I would sometimes just forget how to do them, and there's no way to go back to him then, and because he'll disappear then, and there's no way to go back to him and say, "Hey, how do I learn this one?" Because you can't look up moves you didn't pay for. So yeah, that was. So I actually have to look online just to refresh my brain on how to do some of the moves. And that would be after I hadn't played, either for a couple of days or if I had just for whatever reason, I was exhausted when playing and didn't really register what he was telling me how to do the move. And then I would just forget. So,
well, a sort of a good example of the control issues that other people had that I just have not experienced is I can't remember the official name right off the top of my head, but, the one where you hold down the trigger and then Laylee runs on top of Yuka and you move faster.
Yeah.
The roll move. That's one that people seem to really hate, and they feel like it's really slippery, and they have a lot of trouble controlling it. And that's especially why they hated the World 1 boss, by the way, because he involves a lot of that.
It's slippery, but you can also stop on a dime. It's not like it's out of control. I think that's what a lot of people are missing. I had problems with that move in the toy box, and maybe that's the difference.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too. I kind of got a chance to get a good handle on it during the toy box.
Yeah, and then once... I think people are expecting it to be like Banjo-Kazooie Talon Trot. And it's not like that. It is slippery in motion, but you can also stop, and you don't have to have constant forward momentum, which I think a lot of people don't understand.
Well, regardless of the patch, and I'm sure the patch is going to improve the game tremendously for those who like it, but I don't know that there's anything that they could necessarily do that would cause Yooka-Laylee to become a game that, certain people would want to play. And I do think that a lot of the problem is a lot of people were expecting it to stand up to their memories of playing Banjo-Kazooie when they might not have played Banjo-Kazooie since 1998. And it's never going to be able to do that.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, I've seen people who've recently played Banjo-Kazooie who've been very critical of Yooka-Laylee. So I'm not saying that's everybody.
Different strokes for different folks. But I think that for the 3D platforming genre, with some exceptions, has been out of the public consciousness besides little weirdo cults like this one for quite a while. And I think that's why a lot of the hardcore faithful Rare aficionados pretty much love Yooka-Laylee, while the critics don't know what to make of it. And it really has been... Yooka-Laylee does feel like this genre has been in cryogenic sleep for 15 years or so. Now it's been de-thawed, and not a whole lot has changed, and that's an issue for some people. For me, this is exactly what I expected and basically wanted, and so I have no qualms, really, besides some minor quibbles here or there that don't break the game for me in the end.
Yeah, and that's how I feel, too. That's another thing that I keep sort of thinking to myself as I read these critical reviews, what were you expecting it to be?
Yeah. Exactly, and I think it's a game that the hype got away from it, because this has been the second coming of Rare, or it fed into a little bit of the mentality, a lot of the mentality that Rare is a shell of its former self. It was announced right before the Rare rebranding reveal, where Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves were announced, and before there was any hype attached to Sea of Thieves. And so for a lot of people, this was an oasis in a desert of nothing. And it represented, your childhood is saved. Here we go. This is going to be the second coming of Banjo, the second coming of Rare. It is the messiah of 3D platformers. And the hype got away from it. It worked for Playtonic's benefit for the Kickstarter, obviously. But
Definitely.
There's never going to be a chance that critical reception was going to match what people were anticipating.
Well, since I said that I can sort of understand a lot more where people are coming from, let me see is it okay if I take a moment here and sort of try to lay out, I guess, sort of a brainstorm that I had over all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. You do that.
Where I think people are coming from. Go ahead.
You do that. I'm going to try to slow down my heart by drinking a delicious Angry Orchard hard cider. And Angry Orchard, I'm drinking this. I realize, why are you drinking when you have so much work to do? Well, the taste of Angry Orchard is out of this world, Josh. And I thought it would be apropos to drink a stellar adult beverage while discussing Galleon Galaxy. So that's my
right,
justification.
Hyle, and you can go to angryorchard.com/DKVine, use the code Hyle.
You could
get
try
$5 off your own case.
You could try it. I don't know if that will work, but to be fair, nothing will matter once I get halfway through this bottle. Go ahead, Josh.
All right. In the time that in the month-long stretch where I wasn't playing Yooka-Laylee and I kind of got busy doing other things, one of the things I got busy doing was replaying Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I spent a lot of time sort of ruminating over the differences, the comparing and contrasting Donkey Kong Country, the original trilogy on Super Nintendo, to the two Returns games. Mm-hmm. Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I know that there's people out there who absolutely hate it, Carla. But one thing that sets it apart from other 2D platformers based on older properties like this is that it tries very hard to be distinct and modern. It's not trying to be the original trilogy. It's taking what it wants to from those games and it's building on them, and it's going in its own direction. I think
a good way of looking at it is Retro didn't try to pretend like this game was coming out in 1997, a year after DKC 3. It feels like there was 14 years of evolution leading to Donkey Kong Country Returns. That never actually happened. There were no games in the Country series, besides the remakes, in that interim period. But Retro went forward as if there were, and that's where a lot of fans, Donkey Kong Country faithful, got hung up and a little befuddled. And it was something I kind of realized early on playing it and just embraced. And I think that's allowed the mental leap to just loving that game.
Yeah. Now, Yooka-Laylee, on the other hand, is absolutely owning the fact that it is a retro throwback. It's not... There are some things that are very importantly streamlined about it. I was actually playing a little bit of Banjo-Tooie for comparison the other day, and I was thinking to myself that, there are some things... There's some nice things that Yooka-Laylee does in terms of item collection and like making sure that each item has a purpose, which I know is something that Platonics talked about. There's some streamlined modern things about it, but for the most part, it's owning the fact that it's a retro throwback. But here's the problem. I don't think that there's anything... it's not a contemporary game. It's not contemporarily styled. And for us, that's where a lot of its charm comes from. But more than that, another problem with it is that pretty much nothing about it is as good as its inspirations. Let me put it like this. Nothing was ever going to eclipse Donkey Kong Country 2 for me, but I can look at Returns and Tropical Freeze and acknowledge that they're contemporary modern games and there are things that they do better. Mm-hmm. Yooka-Laylee, on the other hand, it's not this doesn't mean it's a bad game. This doesn't mean that I don't have fun with it. I have a blast with it. But in its mechanics, it's not as good as Banjo-Kazooie.
Agreed.
And the fact that it's been almost 20 years since Banjo-Kazooie makes that a little bit hard to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that rationale. Absolutely. For me, and it's going to be something I'm really not going to be able to critically assess yet. For me, like, because I'm still having so much fun with Yooka-Laylee. So it's still too fresh in my mind to really say one way or another whether it doesn't do anything better than Banjo. Besides, the modern graphical polish, obviously. But yeah, that's a good point. And I think comparing it to Retro's games, which, to be fair, a lot of people in the hardcore fan base have issues with the Retro games. I see it every week, posting on social media for DK Vine whenever I draw upon, the Retro stuff. Ostensibly, we're a Rare fan site, but we're about the broader Donkey Kong universe as well. And, I'll post Retro and, inevitably, not always, but, usually at least once a month, you'll get the detractors in the comments saying, this game was shit, or this wasn't genuinely Donkey Kong Country for me. And I feel like that is why a lot of the hardcore Rare fans who have embraced Yooka-Laylee so thoroughly, but why the people, I don't want to say with broader taste, because I'm excluding myself there because I don't have broader taste, but why people would have issues with Yooka-Laylee who have maybe a bit more perspective and aren't as close to the situation. So yeah, you're right there. I think though that it was a tightrope walk for Playtonic to walk, because by having it funded by fans or partially funded by fans, by having it on Kickstarter, they were explicitly promising something, and they had to play up the nostalgia as much as possible. Basically, I'm going to be interested to see what Playtonic does next, because
absolutely,
yeah, it's I don't fault Yooka-Laylee for what it is, and I honestly adore it for what it is. But I think people let the hype get away from them, and they started projecting onto Yooka-Laylee this great hope, this great, Yooka-Laylee was going to be anything we wanted it to be. It was going to be both scratching that nostalgia itch perfectly while also developing new rashes on our skin. And
I don't think there's any way it could have done that.
No, and that's the thing. And I look at what it would have had to do to please both the stubborn fans, especially the ones who haven't been happy with Rare since the buyout, and yeah, there's just no way. It pretty much had to be a game that hewed as closely to the first two Banjo games as possible, and that wouldn't have pleased the critics, but it would have pleased the fans. And yeah, it was basically a no-win situation. So I think from that perspective, Playtonic did what they needed to do. It just might have been nice to have that critical sheen as well, So, because moving forward, where do they go from here?
But for me personally, ultimately, I mean, I want to say that I do still really, really enjoy it. In my, even though when I played through the rest of World 5 the other day, I was sort of picking up on more of this stuff and noticing this stuff. It's insane to me sometimes just how dense these worlds seem. They're not immersive in the way that Banjo's worlds were, but I feel I'm sort of to the point in that game, and the point in the game now where all that's left to do is go get more pages. Yeah, and I don't know how much we want to veer into that. But
I mean that's pretty much the point I'm at as well, and so you have not actually beaten the game.
No, I haven't.
Oh, good. Neither have I.
Excellent. But I am just really looking forward to going world by world one more time and squeezing everything I can out of them. I notice it sort of there's a very select few games that have ever had this effect on me. Minecraft was one, Breath of the Wild was another, where it's okay, I'm about ready to stop playing, but look at that thing over there. Okay, I'll go check that out. I'll go do this one more thing. I'll go... and that just multiplies. And Yooka-Laylee is weirdly a collectathon that has that kind of an effect on me.
Yeah, and it's fun. I haven't had this feeling, and I know I think Donkey Kong 64, the retroactive realization that Donkey Kong 64 wasn't very good, that I had as I became an adult. I think that made me frown upon the whole collectathon notion, and playing Yooka-Laylee has made me realize, no, wait, I actually do enjoy collectathons. They just have to be done right. And I'm having a lot of fun just looking at my total screen and just seeing, ooh, I've completely cleared Tribal Stack Tropics. Look at that perfect total screen. You know, I'm having fun collecting everything. And, when I find a quill that I've been looking for, it's just this little moment of triumph for me. And so I definitely think that as far as 3D collectathons go, Yooka-Laylee is definitely one of the better ones I've played. So,
and that what you said right there may be a feather in its cap, because I'm not that kind of gamer at all. Like,
really,
looking at a completed total screen like doesn't really bring me any interest. I've never been a completionist. I stick with it as long as it keeps being fun to me. Like, it's sort of the experience is more important than the numbers.
And I'm the guy who
Yooka-Laylee has at least nailed the dichotomy of the two of us.
Yeah. Well, and I'm the guy who likes leveling up his Pokemon before moving on in the game. So, I am a weirdo. I am an outlier. I fully embrace that. And so that's fine.
And I am the guy who beat Pokemon Red in like about an hour and a half last year.
That's just like baffling to me. Like, but don't you want to level up your Rattata? Like, don't you want to have 5 level 100 Pokemon before even hitting the first gym? Come on. So, okay.
So at least Platonic can say that between the two of us, they managed to make it balanced enough, and they managed to give you the choice. They managed to make both completionism and non-completionism fun, at least for the two of us.
That's a win. Yeah, that they may not have pleased all the critics, but at least they cast a wide enough net to get the both of us.
Yeah.
I do want to say, programming note, I mentioned neither of us have beaten the game. We are having not necessarily we, just Josh and I, but the Kongversation is having its Yooka-Laylee wrap-up episode post E3. We will be discussing the final boss, the odds and sods we did not get to. Final thoughts on Yooka-Laylee will be coming post E3. So sorry about stringing all of this out, but I wanted to really get in depth with this game because I feel like we owed it to Yooka-Laylee. This is the most significant release as far as the games we cover since Tropical Freeze. So I wanted to give it its due. So thank you for bearing with us. I know I also promised a DKU roundup episode where we have this giant debate about all of these games that have kind of been on the bubble as far as what we consider Donkey Kong Universe. Tracky Train is one. We have the new Ed Bryan Nosy Crow fairy tale game that brings back some characters from Goldilocks and Little Bear. And actually, Yooka-Laylee is something that people are now arguing about in the DK Vine forum. Is this DKU or not? So we're going to be having that roundup episode now after E3. So that will be a fun one as well. So if you're wondering where that is, we didn't get to it in time. I'm sorry. It will be coming in the first...
Jeez, Hyle, you're so lazy.
I know.
Do you even care about DK Vine?
I know. Clearly, I'm just a shiftless layabout. So apologies. That will be coming in the first crop of episodes after our E3 wrap up. So, Josh, I keep wanting to say Gangplank Galleon. Galleon Galaxy. Too many alliterative ship terms here in the DKU. There's a lot I want to touch upon, and I feel like there's a lot we actually don't have to touch upon. I am of two minds, but I wanted to talk about, I think, the most important thing, and that's the theme, archetype, whatever you want to call it, if you can even call it that, of this world. I'm talking about scratching multiple itches. I knew vaguely what this world was going to be for some time now. You inevitably get spoiled by Twitter because Playtonic has been retweeting people who have been beating the game. And so I accidentally will see things in the corner of my eye and I'll look away. But enough kind of accrued in my mind over time that I knew that this final world was going to be some sort of outer space pirate world. And I didn't really know what that entailed. And I was delightfully surprised nonetheless when I actually got here. And obviously I love pirates. I love sailing. I love the ocean, maritime shit like that. I mean, look, I was weaned on Donkey Kong Country 2. Sea of Thieves is one of my most anticipated games of all time. And this not only incorporates that, but it also incorporates another aesthetic I have a great deal of love for, and that's spaciness. And
yeah, it's another example of the game playing well to both of us because you love pirates and I love space.
Well, it's funny because I don't know how much you keep up with our Facebook page, but on Saturday mornings, I have a weekly feature on the Facebook page, your Saturday morning splash of seafaring, where I go through just screenshots of different nautical elements in the Donkey Kong universe. And then Saturday nights, I have your Saturday night screen grab of spaciness, where I go through all of the cosmic moments in the DKU. So the fact that I can mine several Saturdays worth for both features out of this one world is a gift to me unto itself. But from a purely gaming perspective, as far as I am a gamer, I'm not somebody who's trying to milk content out of games. This was like catnip to me. This combines the classic Malesian rare pirate elements with the kind of galactic pinball part of my heart that just loves sci-fi space malarkey.
Absolutely. No, I was so instantly taken with the theme of this world. In contrast to you, I hadn't been spoiled on it. Or at least if I had, I'm sure I saw screenshots of it, but I hadn't allowed that to solidify in my brain. So I got there and, I see that inexplicable sea that is also in space, and I instantly knew, okay, I need to ask Hyle if I can be on this episode.
So I got here and I didn't know what to, I knew I was in space, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't realize that was an ocean or sea at first. I thought it was just like a nebula, and I was like, okay, so I'm in space and I can fall, so I've got to be careful. And then I actually just accidentally, because I was still trying to get the flappy flight or whatever it's called, the flying maneuver. I was still trying to get that because it's a little loose as far as the controls go, and that is something they're improving in the patch. It is not the flight simulator of Banjo-Kazooie, that's for sure. But
I think the reason it is the way it is sort of a balance reason, because you can activate it anywhere.
True.
Man, but I do constantly think, man, it would be nice if I could just hit a button to descend. That would really help.
For me, it's the camera when you're doing it. When you're trying to precision land, and you can't even get the camera to show you where you're trying to land. That's the most aggravating part for me. But again, these aggravations, I want to point out, we have our criticisms. It doesn't break the game for either one of us. And I think maybe it's because we are older gamers in comparison. It's all relative, but in comparison to a lot of the embryos who make up the online gaming community, we are of an older vintage, and we remember when games were absolutely brutal. And I feel like because of that, we make allowances that a lot of other gamers don't. We're in this mindset these days where if a game isn't 100% perfection, then it's considered trash. A game is either perfect or it's abysmal. And people don't really think in the terms of there can be flaws, but you can also have a really good time with it. So
Well, I think it's just also sort of what seem like little minor nitpicks to us might genuinely very negatively impact someone else's enjoyment of the game. You are right in that we're a little older, we are a little more vintage, but I think it's important. What I always try to do is sort of mentally shift myself. Like, if I was 14 years old and someone showed me, hey, here's this new game, and it had, like, the mechanics of, like, an Atari 2600 game, would I really be able to engage with it? You know what I mean? Would I really be able to overlook that?
I can understand that, because Rare Replay, playing those old Spectrum games.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. My eyeballs are bleeding by the end of it, and I just have to walk away. I'm just like, I can't do this right now. Because those predate me, you know? So from that perspective, actually empathizing with the youth, I can see that. But we don't have time for empathy. No, not before E3. But I mean, I think it is, from that perspective, okay, I understand that. But I think from the people who are just who aren't inhibited by the more retro style gameplay, I feel like there is just this, we demand too much from our entertainment these days, and it's fine to have standards, but not where you just don't enjoy things on principle. Like, I can go into a movie, and I made this comparison before, I believe. Like, for example, I saw Prometheus, speaking of aliens bursting out of your chest, or proto-aliens, and I enjoy Prometheus for what it was. It's not my favorite movie, but I also don't consider it just to be this, like, abysmal atrocity that so many people write it off as. I can see the positives in it, and that's, maybe I'm just too much of a glass half full kind of guy in a cynical world. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Hyle, stop being so optimistic and sunny. Jeez.
No, okay, I used to be a cynical, miserable bastard, and then I had...
I remember.
I had several years of therapy, and I came out of that a little sunnier. And unfortunately, I cultivated a community that was built on negativity. And now I'm a pariah on my own website.
Well, it has been very enjoyable to see you see you evolve over the years. I guess is the way.
I also think growing up has part of something to do with it as well, where it's just life is too short to be just enraged by every perceived slight, and occasionally, let's say, Smash Brothers, you still tap into that, but some habits are hard to break.
Where you were once a cynical Squirtle, you are now a much more evolved Blastoise, and you are still grinding your way up in that little patch of grass up to level 100. You still have your moments, and that's okay.
See, I walk clockwise, and then when I get bored with that after several hours, I go counterclockwise.
The possibilities are endless, really.
All right, yeah, but this archetype, my God, this was just what I love about Yooka-Laylee, and really it's only necessarily on display in this world, is that they're able to do new things with these tired tropes. Okay, yeah, it's I mean, it's a rare game in that it's made by Playtonic. So we have all these pirate elements, but we'll stick it in space to give it a new coat of paint, and it kind of breathes new life into both.
Yeah, and this is, like, even aside from the pirate elements, like, this is a theme that, as far as I can remember, we didn't see in Banjo-Kazooie or Tooie. I know there was a pirate-themed world in Donkey Kong 64. I never make it there, but I know there is one.
Well, in Banjo-Tooie, there was the Jolly Roger Lagoon, or was it Bay? Because the Super Mario 64 world, I confused the two because they're very similar names. But you had
99% sure it's Bay.
Yeah, you had that, which wasn't, necessarily fully pirate themed because then you went underwater.
Well, that was kind of like a sea shanty kind of thing, that was kind of this beachside town,
Captain Black Eye was there, and
yeah.
But you had that, and the only thing space-wise you had in Banjo-Tooie was in Witchy World. You had the space-themed parts of the park, but you didn't really go into space, and you never really went into space in Rare's Donkey Kong either. Donkey Kong didn't start going into space until after Payon got their hands on the series, and Jungle Beat as well. So
yeah, I was kind of trying to think like space in general, like across the DKU, is not a very common trope.
Well, I found enough to keep my feature going for the last 207 weeks. So there's enough.
Well, the DKU is a big place. But,
Yeah. No, it was, Conker went into space, and there's Star Fox Adventures, which shouldn't really count, but, that's cheating. But besides that, yeah, Donkey Kong and Banjo, aren't really the seasoned space explorers or astronauts as the.
And I think that's another really neat thing about sort of the way that the world is put together in Yooka-Laylee, the fact that all the worlds take place within storybooks, because it allows them, like, on the one hand, you can argue against it, because Banjo-Tooie's big thing was what an immersive, complete world it was, and it still did goofy things, like with Cloud Cuckoo Land, of course.
Yeah.
But Yooka-Laylee allows it, like, the storybook aspect allows it to be very, very imaginative without any constraints whatsoever.
Right. It's separate from Hyrule Towers, which, Rare always plays that cartoony middle ground where, it's cartoony, but we're still going to treat it like it's a living, breathing extension of our reality. So you have a lot of mundane aspects creeping into this wacky talking animal world. But yeah, with the storybooks, then, you can get a little bit more far-fetched, a little crazier, without that necessarily impacting the feel of the game, which I appreciate.
And not all worlds in Yooka-Laylee do that. World 2 is the ice world.
It's the ice world. I mean, it's the Disney's Frozen, vaguely aesthetically world, and World 3 is essentially the swamp world, but with jack-o'-lanterns for some reason. But Tribal Sack Tropics is the weird kind of Pandora jungle world, but not really. And then you've got Capital Casino, which is just a casino, but again, that's never really been done in a Rare game. So,
well, it's sort of one of those instances where I'd really like to know, in development, was this something that's sort of, because sometimes I'll play through a game and I'll start feeling like it's getting better as it's going along. And so I wonder if World 5's theme and its art pieces and so sort of the way that it was put together was decided, once the team was really firing on all cylinders. Because I feel like this, like,
might have been.
We're capping the game off with what is definitely my favorite world in the game.
Yeah, it might have been. This is one of the two worlds they kept secret, because it was this and Moody Maze Marsh. They didn't reveal anything about these worlds ahead of time, just because the fans, they listened to the fans, and the fans didn't want too much revealed ahead of time. So this is the one. I mean, I like Moody Maze Marsh, and at the time I played it, it was my favorite world, but this is the world that I'm glad they kept under wraps for as long as they could.
No, Moody Maze March was great. I think I'll have to go back and play it again, but I think Moody Maze March might be overall. Moody Maze March feels the most cohesive, I guess, of all the worlds. It feels like it's the most. It does the most like what you'd expect out of a Banjo game. And what was very, very strong about those games in terms of the world design, which Yooka-Laylee, for the most part, doesn't really do in quite the same way, but we'll kind of get into that.
Moody Maze Marsh feels like a real place. Capital Casino feels like a real place.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say the other three worlds feel more like set pieces, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with that because of how well they're pulled off, but As far as like, oh, these storybooks feel like they're also real realms where characters have lives they go about. That definitely Moody Maze and Capital Casino. I was going to complain that Moody Maze March is the hardest world to navigate, and then I realized that's why Maze is in the title. So, but
well, acknowledging itself as a maze doesn't necessarily make it okay.
It does, yeah, I know, but at the very least, they covered their asses there. They realized, oh, it's kind of hard to get around here. Call it a maze. They'll think it's intentional.
They could call it shitty-ass tech demo, and that wouldn't make it good.
No, that's Super Mario 64, the half-completed castle.
Speaking of the half-completed castle, though, let me tell you the very first thing. One of the first things I did in this world.
Okay.
Like I said, I was instantly taken with the theme of it. As I was playing, I noticed like the corplets. I don't know if those are corplets in this case, but with the brain sticking out of the top.
Brain guys, yeah, I love it.
This was like I said, I'm not a completionist, so this was only the second time that I've actually found the molecule.
What?
Yep, I found it in Tribal Stack Tropics, and this is the first time I found it again, probably only because the world was so tiny at first.
Right. And the game holds your hand because it literally shows you where the molecule is.
Does it? I didn't even notice that. I'm bad at looking for things in
video
games.
Once you turn on the lighthouse, the camera pans up to show you the molecule.
Ah, yeah, that's right. So I got the molecule. I turned into I did the transformation and you become a boat and you're sailing around on the seas.
Okay, no. The actual term is spaceship.
Spaceship. We got some Go Kaiger in here now. Nobody's going to get that. I'm sorry.
Is that a Power Rangers reference?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean the original source material. Yes.
Yeah. There's one where they have a pirate ship that is also a spaceship and it flies around from planet to planet.
I had heard that there was a spaceship transformation, again, because Twitter spoiled it for me. But I was picturing a flying saucer, something like the saucer apparel in Banjo-Tooie. I was not expecting it to be just a pirate ship. And I love that. I love it.
I do too. Now, it completely breaks down if you think about it too hard, but just you repeat to yourself, it's just a game, you know? How are you able to sail on this cosmic sea? What differentiates this part of the sea from why can't you go up and down, basically?
Well, here's my interpretation of this world. Let's just get this.
Yes, Professor Slush. Out
in the open now. Is I thought that this isn't necessarily floating in space. It's on an alien planet or planetoid or moon or something. And that's where we're on. But I might be wrong.
Hey, whatever it is, it looks freaking cool. That's all I know.
Maybe it's just a body of water floating in space. Again, the storybook aspect of it means it can be whatever they want it to be, and there doesn't have to be a plausible explanation. That's on the ghostwriters who created this world.
In any case, what I did, I sort of finished up some of the challenges that you can do with the spaceship, and then I just decided to set sail out to that massive expanse where there was nothing since I hadn't expanded the world yet. I continued on in that direction for quite some time before I fell through the water floor and got reset back to the world entrance. And I absolutely loved that. Games don't have stuff like that anymore. There would be an invisible wall or something. And maybe it's just me. I'm sure there are people who would be like, oh, Yooka-Laylee, unfinished tech demo. But the fact that you can just go out there and do that and there's nothing stopping you, it speaks to... It might be a good little microcosm of what we were talking about earlier, where the retro-styled aspects of Yooka-Laylee are exactly what's charming about it to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time I complain about the castle roof in Super Mario 64, I'm doing that from a 1996 perspective. Were a game to actually do that today, maybe I would be like, oh, what a charming little reference that is. Still one of my pet peeves. You called me out on Twitter the other day about it, and I still stand by. The whole game, you're fantasizing about getting up on that castle roof, and then you get up on there, and there's nothing. It just goes into nothingness.
Well, that's because, and I know you know this, and I'm not... The whole point of Mario 64 was just sort of providing a template, providing some form of proof that a game could work in 3D. It didn't really care so much about anything to do with immersion or world building. Like, the fact that the roof was incomplete is kind of inconsequential because that was not the focus of what Mario 64 was. Banjo-Kazooie, on the other hand, and one of the big things that set Banjo apart from Mario was that immersion, was that world building.
Yeah, I know. But again, the type of gamer I am, of course that's going to be a sticking point for me. And this isn't like a retroactive opinion. This is the way I felt when I was a kid playing Super Mario 64, and I've never matured out of that view.
I remember going on DK Vine and seeing you had one of the Funnos that was referencing that.
Oh, right.
And I was like, man, that's really cool to think about. I had just never thought of it that way before.
See, yeah, and that's why I loved Banjo-Kazooie, because Super Mario 64's big mystery for me was getting up on that castle roof. And Grant, I know you can like glitch your way up there, wall kick your way. I know there's ways to do it ahead of time, but when you're a kid, you don't know. And the thing about Banjo-Kazooie was its mystery seemed far grander and deliberate. And granted, Stop and Swap never really paid off, but I appreciated that it kind of built up. I was talking in World 4 with Mitchell Wolf about how games don't have deliberate mysteries anymore, and how just little things like a room that seemingly serves no purpose can be the most delightful thing. And so anyway, I'm getting far off track here, but...
Well, to bring it back, like I said, Banjo was about making these places feel more immersive and feel more believable as a world, and part of the thing, the point of contention that people have had with Yooka-Laylee is that it largely doesn't do as good a job, or doesn't seem to be nearly as focused on capturing that. Mm-hmm. And, like, I was noticing that as I was playing this. One of the first, once I expanded the world, and by the way, what we're talking about here, basically, when you first go into Galleon Galaxy, there's just a couple of set of islands and a lighthouse, and there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Once you expand it, it becomes this much more filled out set of islands and the big tubes that connect one to the other, and it's just a lot more filled out. One of the first things I did... Go ahead.
Well, there are literally 3 pages you can get ahead of time. And I believe you get 2 Ghost Riders, I want to say. And one of the Ghost Riders, by the way, that whole... It's right behind the world entrance where you lizard lash your way up these floating asteroids. And that was terrifying for me, because I felt it was so precarious. You're like basically it's like a Batman Arkham game, but in space, and you're just like using your grappling hook, in this case a tongue, to go further and further up into this asteroid just to get this one Ghost Rider. That was one thing you could do before the expansion.
And I did that, and I almost made it there, and then I fell, and then I looked and I thought, and I'm like, you know what? I can just fly up there. That's one of the big things that I'm noticing. I can't play a game anymore without thinking about what a hypothetical episode of the Geek Critique would be like about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
naturally,
one thing that I think about is, like, compare this stuff to Banjo, compare the way that you get moves to Banjo. Like, I don't like how inconsistent your moves are sometimes. And like how unclear their effects can be sometimes. Like, sometimes in this world you have to use your sonar ability to break a glass block, but sometimes in other worlds there's an ice block, and it's weird to differentiate between the two. It's a little clunky in terms of its mechanics in that way.
That's my biggest criticism as far as that goes. It's that there are too many similar moves that perform similar functions with not enough clarity on why one is able to achieve one goal, but it can't do it for this item. And the ice and tempered glass or whatever, that's a big thing. Yeah.
But I love what the moves allow you to do in terms of your movement and your options and your abilities. And one thing that it's really striking me how different it is from Banjo. Like, Banjo gave you options. It gave you different ways to tackle things. But in Yooka-Laylee, it's sort of reminding me of certain, like, Metroid games, in that by the end, you don't have to tackle challenges if you don't want to. You can just fly up there. You can gain the ability to circumvent a lot of the game's challenge if that's what you want to do. And part of the reason I'm looking forward to going through each world by world and look over everything is because I know I'm going to be able to do that. Like, even if I don't want to jump up there or tackle it in one way, I can just fly.
Yeah, and I understand what you're talking about as far as Metroid goes, thanks to your stellar Metroid series. Check it out at the Geek Critique on YouTube. But yeah, Yooka-Laylee, actually, we're comparing it to the first two Banjo games. One thing, and I don't know if you can say it does it better because I don't know how intentional it is, but it's one thing that sets it apart from the Banjo games. Yooka-Laylee is more of a sandbox, a naturalistic sandbox where there are multiple ways to achieve certain objectives. And maybe that's just, as I said, maybe it has to do with the way the game was developed in Unity, I believe. But yeah, you can. It's not necessarily breaking the game, but you can circumvent the way the game necessarily wants you to do it, and it's fine.
And that may be why it sort of has that okay, I'll just do one more thing. I just go check this out. Why it has that stickiness to me. Because open world games that I find fun to play tend to be able to do that. So that's really interesting that you'd make that point and make that comparison to it being like each world is a sandbox.
And the fact that you can pretty much scale the barriers on each world. You can climb rocks for a good deal of time before you can't get any higher. It makes me think the choice of a chameleon was pretty genius as far as...
Yeah, and I love that about it.
Yeah, the fact that your character it's so clingy and you can just kind of go explore and find different routes that aren't necessarily laid out in front of you. It's definitely... That is something that sets it apart from Banjo, and not necessarily for the better, because I like the more linear objectives of the Banjo series, but I'm also, it's kind of opened my mind, and I was kind of freaking out about it when I first played Yooka-Laylee, because I was like, wait, am I even supposed to be doing this? Is this the right way to do it? And then by the time I got to, I think, World 3, I didn't care. So...
Yeah, man, when I'm saying that, Yooka-Laylee ends up letting you circumvent a lot of its challenge, and it makes you significantly more overpowered than Banjo and Kazooie were, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. It's just something that really stood out to me as one of the things that sets Yooka-Laylee apart from Banjo.
Honestly, it makes it slightly more realistic, because if this were you trying to get all of these mystical talking pages from a book, as, usually happens from time to time in your life, there would be multiple ways for you to go about it. So I kind of appreciate it. So
obviously, one of the first things you'd say to yourself, okay, there's a pagey underwater, I'll just fart out a bubble. That's realism.
Right.
That's realism.
I know. From my perspective, in my skewed worldview, that is a slice of life right there.
Now, that being said, what Yooka-Laylee gains in sort of being a sandbox, like we were talking about earlier, it loses in a degree of immersion. And one thing I noticed, one of the first things I did was I went and did the pagey quest that involves Shovel Knight and the pigs. Did you do this one?
Yeah. Can I just say, I was shocked to see Shovel Knight in this world. I thought Shovel Knight was just going to be a one-off cameo in the first world, one and done. Isn't it cute? And then here Shovel Knight is in the last world as well. And I liked this is the point where reusing so many of the same characters from world to world, I initially had a problem with it because I thought, oh, they're just not going about like actually inventing new characters for each world. This feels kind of like they're rehashes. But by the time I got to the 5th world, it just started clicking for me, and I was like, all right, I like this fact. I like that these characters go from world to world, just like you do, trying to achieve different objectives. The sense of community is different than it is in a Banjo game as far as the NPCs go, but again, it just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong.
Whereas to me, when I saw Shovel Knight, I understand my lack of ability to notice things in games, so my reaction was, okay, I bet he was in every other world too, and I just missed him.
I like that they tied Shovel Knight to the pigs, too. The two knights. Yeah.
But, that being said, like we said, it's not saying that everything in Banjo made sense if you thought about it to any degree, but it's weird how all the pigs are looking for this treasure trove, which is located in a cave that they can all see from where they're standing. Shovel Knight is in the cave and for some reason knows all the weird little ways that you have to get the pigs to eject keys, and it just ends up feeling really artificial. And that's the weakness of Yooka-Laylee in comparison to Banjo. That's that lack of immersion that set Banjo apart from Mario 64 is not usually very much in focus in Yooka-Laylee. It's very, very gamey.
Well, I would actually argue that immersion is there a lot of the time, but never for the Knights of Camelot. And
okay, yeah.
That's because all of their missions feel so artificial and contrived and lack the logic that rare games usually have, even if it's kooky, far-fetched logic that you kind of have to squint to, for it to be anywhere close to being reasonable. But yeah, the Knights of Camelot, I mean, I don't know how, if you've done all of their other missions in Tribal Stack Tropics or Capital Casino, but it never makes much sense. They're like the most inept, not just knights, but they're the most inept living creatures. Like how they even go to the bathroom without doing the whole Ted Nugent having their underwear caked with feces thing. I don't understand, because they're just completely stupid as far as the rules of this universe go.
And yet, in contrast, I'm running around the world, I'm sort of ruminating on this immersion thing, and then I run into one of my favorite sort of mindless idiots who need your help quests, involving that lady with the scouter. I didn't get her name.
The lady with the what?
With the Dragon Ball Z style scouter.
Oh, Shell, I believe is her name.
Okay.
Yes. So the one who looks like Vela from Jet Force Gemini.
Oh yeah, I made the same comparison.
yeah, and I didn't know if it was like, obviously her hair is silver rather than blue, but I didn't know if it was like a Jet Force reference. The fact that she's designed so differently from the rest of the Yooka-Laylee cast, I mean that's what came to mind. She also reminds me of Judy Jetson.
Well, either way, the fact that it's this team makes it pretty clear that I think I'm comfortable calling it a Jet Force Gemini homage.
Yeah, if Chad were here, I could maybe pick his brain, since he is the expert as far as Jet Force goes. But yeah, that I loved that mission, and I loved go ahead. The level of moral ambiguity it creates.
Yeah, exactly. And in contrast, it made sense. Like, Yooka and Laylee have this shield move that she can't do anything with, or that she can't utilize, and so she needs to enlist their help. And completing the mission has a tangible impact on the world.
Yes.
Like, that was something I really liked about it. I laughed hard when Yooka fell out of the sky when the mission was over.
For me, where I laughed was when Laylee was describing how it happened to her, and she said, and then we did this, and and it went blam, and it was like an excited kid telling an adult like this amazing feat, and that's like Yooka-Laylee, as far as characters go, always like obviously they pale compared to Banjo and Kazooie, but moments like that I like really can see like, okay, that's not something Kazooie would ever say, and exactly. I can see Laylee now as much more than just an XP, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the shells, and I'm getting that name from Yooka-Laylee wiki. So I'm trusting the good people at Yooka-Laylee wiki on that name. But I love that, and I love that it hints at this greater conflict that's kind of unseen in this world, where I don't know if she's a mercenary or if she like works with like the Space Marines or something or whatever, but she said she wanted an artifact from the Blamphibians, and the fact that she blows up their weapon, this planetoid weapon, and I don't know, it was
Do you know what? I could really see that being this whole little mission here being an instance of Platonics perhaps hinting at what game at another game that they might want to do.
Yeah, because we know the focus of their next game, the character appears in Yooka-Laylee. Shell, that because the fact that she seems so different from the rest of the game, I think that's a great candidate right there.
And the whole mission hints at things, and it feels like there's something going on that you can't ascertain just from that.
Good observation. I hadn't even put the pieces together there. Mostly because I played this world late last night and a good portion of today, and I'm so bleary-eyed that my usual spot-on Sherlock Holmesian detective skills are a bit frayed right now.
No, I heard you during due diligence. I remember.
My heart rate has decreased thanks to the good people at Angry Orchard Heart Cider. Angry Orchard, it will slow your heart down to a dangerous level.
I don't think they're going to sponsor you like that.
Oh, they're not sponsoring me at all. I'm just hoping that eventually they'll send me a free case. I just want 6 free hard ciders. That's all I'm after.
Well, knocking that big interplanetary ring down allows you to get up to like the ring sort of falls down and impacts within the level, and you can climb up it and reach a new set of islands that you couldn't before, unless of course you flew up there like I already had.
Yeah, you can see the toilets of Galleon Galaxy. Yeah.
And then you can go and talk to Jontron, or what? No, he's not there, and you can be very angry about it.
Oh, is that where he was supposed to be?
Yeah, he voiced the he doesn't now, but he voiced the unseen character in the toilet.
Oh my god.
I'm just gonna let you process that.
Apropos, no, okay. So I'm not saying anything. Well, I didn't say. Who said that? What? Where? Talking about the Blamphibians, circling back to that before I bite my tongue. What'd you think about all the frog characters in this? There's the bodybuilder, the golf course owner, the black hole in one. I like them. Yeah. They reminded me a lot of Jolly Roger. Speaking of him again, and
oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, it's the pedigree of this team. Of course, there are going to be similarities to previous characters, but yeah, I like them. I like the bodybuilder and that whole. It took me. I thought to do that. I don't know if you got that pagey or not. The whole
which one?
Basically the feat of strength one where you have to
yeah, I got that one.
Yeah. Because I didn't realize there was the cannonballs that you had to swallow.
No, you didn't. See, I entered that area via those little islands, so there's no way I could have missed them.
Okay. So I was thinking, I have to do the flappy flight and fly up as high as I can go, and then ground pound or whatever. And I just ended up killing myself.
I'm surprised that didn't work. I really wish it had.
Yeah, but honestly, it should work. That should be one of those, like we were just talking about, the multiple ways to achieve an objective. If you could have theoretically pulled that off, and it was basically impossible with the camera, but if you could have, then that would have been nice to see.
I did use flight. I'd get the cannonball and then I'd fly up on top of the thing and then make my jump from there just to make it quicker.
See, I didn't even think to do that. I just went through, and you have like very little time to pull it off, right? But
yeah.
See, I think I was afraid to use the flappy flight, use and abuse it too much. For me, I think it's like I always have this fundamental fear of going out of bounds or going where I'm not supposed to. It's from like these fears when I was a kid of playing games and like either breaking the game or going where I wasn't supposed to go yet or something. So for me, I limit flight as much as possible. It's just a reflex as far as I'm concerned. It's not like I'm still afraid of doing that, but it's just how I play games. If I have something that can like make me go out of bounds, then I'm not going to abuse that.
Well, another example of something of like a move effect that doesn't... It just doesn't seem obvious enough to me. I spent basically the whole level flying around and seeing those balloons that were holding up those treasure chests and trying to figure out how to pop them. And I only figured it out, like, the last thing I did after I beat the boss was when I figured that out.
Yeah.
Because you have to sonar the balloons.
Right.
And that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I figured that out early on because before the world expanded, you have those two balloons next to the pagey piece. And I accidentally popped them because to clear the field of corplets, I did the sonar explosion and it popped the balloons. And I was just like, okay, that's probably going to be something I will have to do when I expand the world.
I might have done that too. I may well have done that too and then just not played the game for a month.
True, yeah.
Combat in general, real quick.
Yeah.
Combat, we're going to compare it to Banjo and even Donkey Kong 64. Combat sucks in this game.
You think?
It's... Okay, sucks maybe a step too far. Like, you made the sort of open world comparison earlier, and that's sort of how I'm starting, a sandbox comparison, and that's how I'm starting to look at it. A lot of sandbox-style games have this problem where, because there's so much focus put on exploring and building up your character and stuff like that, combat in something like Skyrim, for instance, feels really, really loose and really I don't know if sloppy is the right word. It just feels like in this game, when you attack something, there's no like crunch to it. There's no like wind up and then Kazooie hits the thing with her beak and or something like that. Combat often tends to just be about running around and doing your tail twirl thing and happening to hit enemies. And enemies' attacks themselves, like, even there's some very large and difficult to defeat enemies in this world, but like a lot of the enemies, what they end up doing is just sticking their arms out and spin attacking at you.
Yeah, okay. I can see it's monotonous at times. I will cop to that. It doesn't bother me though, and it never feels like it's a nuisance. It just like here I'm just doing a sonar explosion. I think that's what it's called, and I just clear the field quickly. And
the sonar explosion is one thing that I really do enjoy using though.
And by this point, you should have enough the power meter extenders where you're never really in dire straits as far as your energy goes. So I liberally use a lot of the moves just to make it easier. But I do hate the corplet punishers, the twirly arm guys. They're just they're so hard to. I think I've like defeated one once with the sonar explosion, multiple sonar explosions, and. It was on the Black Hole in One golf course, and I just couldn't be bothered to do it again. It was just they're just tiresome. And I think I wish there were more corplet varieties. Yeah, it's cool that they're aesthetically different in each world, and that's great. But I wish there were more. Like, I wish there was a middle ground between the giant brutes who twirl and can kill you fairly easily, and the small little pushovers that just, like I said, get monotonous.
And Banjo-Tooie, to be fair, I mean, not to be fair, this doesn't excuse it, but Banjo-Tooie had similar problems to a degree in terms of those little green goblin guys who would
Uggas
and come and
use their Christian names. Ugga. It's in the Bible.
I apologize.
It's in my Bible, which is the Banjo-Tooie Player's Guide, but
yeah, I mean, those were strewn. Those and the pterodactyls, which were called. Oh, Hyle.
I'm losing my religion.
No, but those were just strewn liberally all throughout the game.
It's just a song in Donkey Konga 2, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Well, hey, at least you got that.
Yeah, I mean, and I like the corplets. Generally, they're a lot more memorable than the gruntlings or the Uggas or any Banjo-Kazooie. That was always the weakest part of Banjo-Kazooie, were the enemies, the drones. They're not as memorable as they are in Donkey Kong with the Kremlings or the Snowmads, to use a more modern reference. But
or the Tiki Tak tribe, they were my favorites.
Honestly, some of the Tikis were more memorable than the Banjo enemies. So corplets have a big leg up there, and I love the way they change appearance. And I don't know which is my favorite at this point. But I love the cosmic corplets. They look like something out of a old Star Trek episode. Like the original series Star Trek.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I said, the aesthetic of this world immediately did it for me. Mm-hmm. There is one more thing. Like, I think what we should do is save the boss for last. That seems like a good finishing point for this world.
Absolutely.
Before we get there is one more thing that I want to talk about in this world, and maybe you've got more, but
well, let's hear what you have to say.
That is the toy box secret. Did you find this out?
Yeah. Okay. I was hoping we are going to get there. Well, okay. Before we get to that, because I was going to table that right before the boss, I want your thoughts on Rextro, and I want your thoughts on Kartos.
Okay. Rextro, we'll do him first. I guess both Rextro and Kartos were, correct me if I'm wrong, they were part of the Kickstarter. They were one of those, the stretch goals. If we get to this certain amount, then we'll add classic arcade games and minecart sections. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
This is probably an example of what can be wrong when you do Kickstarters, because regardless of my thoughts on them, the overall consensus, and I do agree with this, is that the game would have been stronger, say if you'd kept them to one world, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Definitely for Kartos.
The fact that the development team was not forced because it was their idea in the first place, but had made the promise that they would be featured throughout the game, hurt the game overall. Rextro, though, let's do him first. I haven't found, full disclosure, I haven't found the arcade coin in this world yet, so I can't speak to this game specifically. I don't really have
much to say about this one in particular. At this point, like, Rextro's games don't bother me like they bother a lot of other people, and I think they're nice diversions, but they're diversions I usually save for last because they take me out of the action so much. So I have a lot more patience for Rextro than some. I think at this point in the game, looking back, I think had they just kept Rextro's games, I've been saying his name right for so long now that I just botched it. If they would have kept his games to the arcade in Highbury Towers and just have it be this little side thing that maybe you get something if you do it all, but it's not really like consequential. That would have been one thing, but having them strewn about the worlds, I can understand that point.
And the fact that it requires that in every single world there's this enormous arcade cabinet. You know?
Yeah, it's it's fine, and I like the character of Rextro.
Me too.
I like a lot of the games, honestly. I like some of the arcade games. I think you have to be in the right mood to play them. Like, for example, the Tribal Stack Tropics one, Kartos Karting. I wanted to get that page because it was one of the last pages I had to get. And so I wasn't playing Yooka-Laylee, and I just picked it up with the sole intent of playing that. And I had so much fun with it. But it was because I wasn't playing Yooka-Laylee to 3D platform at that particular moment in time. And
I didn't have... Go ahead.
So I think if you approach Rextro's games from that perspective is, okay, I'm gonna play some Rextro games right now, then they're a lot more, not just tolerable, but straight up fun than they are if, all of a sudden your 3D platforming comes to a screeching halt and you have to play something that's basically an entirely different genre and sometimes intentionally shitty.
Even on that level, I didn't mind any of them. What I will say about Rextro's games, and I first noticed this in Tribal Stack Tropics, I can't remember if more of them showcased this, was that they, for one thing, they seem to have some optimization issues. I don't know if anybody else besides me that you've had on has been playing this game on the PC.
I don't think so. No, I think you're the weirdo who's playing it on. I've been playing it on the Xbox One, so. Mm-hmm.
It's weird because, generally speaking, the game runs fan-freaking-tastically. I'm getting, like, 140, 150 frames per second throughout the game. Except there are occasional places, and it seems to be tied to, like, particle effects. Mm-hmm. For instance, on the quiz show, the quiz rooms, where you have all those particle effects rising up out of the acid, that seems to really knock it down. And I was wondering if on the Xbox One you also noticed frame dips in certain scenes like that.
This world in particular. There I don't know what it is, but there are certain parts near the docks. There's the jettison, the Jetsons reference. That always goes horribly slow for me. I think it's something the patch will probably fix, but yeah, the frame rate dips and everything. It reminds me of Web Woods in DKC2 when everything there'd be way too much on the screen and it would just go in slow motion. So.
I have heard that, unfortunately, the Xbox One version is probably the worst optimized out of them. I didn't have any trouble in this world at all.
Okay, well, I'm glad I picked the right one then.
Well, hey, the patch will probably address a lot of this stuff.
I did go in for the Wii U version on the Kickstarter, and then when that went to hell, but I decided to be a good loyal Rare fanboy and go with the Xbox One version.
Man, I hope the Switch version runs well. I'm expecting it to. I plan to play through the game again once it comes out on Switch. But anyway, getting back to Rextro's games, in terms of gameplay, never like they're clunky, and they're sometimes like not like they don't flow as well as the rest of the game, but they're mini games and I don't expect them to. My only problem with them is that you're expected to, in order to get the page on each one, like you have to play them twice. You know what I mean?
As I mentioned before, that's my biggest problem with Rextro's games is I've beaten the high score the first time around, and I have to do it again to get the pagey. It's just ugh.
Yeah. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but there's older games that make you do stuff like that. And it just seems really, really outdated.
Well, that seems like it's older than even what Yooka-Laylee is throwing back to. That seems like that's from the NES era. I mean, that's just... Ugh.
Minecart stages, speaking of things that are outdated, these ancient mechanics that nobody ever uses anymore, like minecarts in video games. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, my disdain for whatever the hell Kartos is griping about is also well established by this point. I don't feel like I have to belabor that point.
Yeah, I won't repeat that again. But as far as Kartos goes, again, much like Rextro, I never had a problem playing them. The controls would have been okay if it had been a minigame. If it had been something you do in one world, one time, maybe it's the Capital Casino boss. You have a minecart track and then you fight a boss. That would have been fine.
As you naturally find in casinos.
Yeah, of course. But, well, maybe you could have made it like a more... Oh, you know what? You were making a DKC2 reference right there.
Was I?
No, because there's you ride rails in a circus environment in DKC2.
Oh, I guess you do, but that's a roller coaster.
Not in minecarts.
That's a roller coaster, though, so...
Same thing. Close enough. I happen to look over at my desktop background, which is DKC2 right now, and I'm like, minecart rails. Close enough.
No, it's I think the more proper comparison would be the roller coaster in a library. That's the way these minecart tracks sometimes feel in Yooka-Laylee.
But yeah, Kartos would have been okay. Like, the way it controls isn't good, but it would have been okay if it was just once. The fact that it shows up over and over and over again, like, and I know you've talked about this with other people in the conversation before, but you compare it to Returns and Tropical Freeze, you can't freaking help but do that.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't expect it to get there, and that's fair, because that's not the point of this game. But the fact that it doesn't even come close.
Yeah.
That it just completely pales in comparison, even to the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy minecart stages. But I said, I know. Go ahead.
Even Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I always forget about those, but yeah, they were there too.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would be one thing Donkey Kong 64 does better than Yooka-Laylee. Maybe the only thing it does better are the minecart stages. Yeah.
All that being said, I never had trouble playing them, and when I failed one, I didn't grit my teeth that I had to try it again. I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'll get more gems this time.
I think it was Capital Casino that it started wearing thin for me, because that's when the difficulty level spikes, and it just becomes, especially if you don't have a good handle on how loose the minecart controls and how floaty it is, it never feels like there's any weight behind it, and that's my issue with it.
Well, at that point, it sort of becomes like a test of rote memorization.
Yeah.
Where, like, okay, I got to play through it once to remember where the gems are. Then I got to play through it again and remember the controls. But, that's bad Sonic games, and I've played all those.
maybe that explains it. Yeah, that probably explains why you're more okay with it than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the toy box connection here. And this is something
I love this
that
so much.
I knew was coming thanks to Mitchell Wolf alluding to it in the World 4 discussion. But yeah, this is the clue they give you in the toy box. You pound a rock near the pirate ship, and a UFO drops off inept from the toy box on the ship.
Now, this is specifically the character inept and not the drone inept.
Well, okay.
Do we know how we're looking at that yet?
This is what's so confusing, because I believe that the drones, they go by inept sometimes, but they're also called like corporate security, like robots or something. And
sure.
And then we have the boss inept from World 4. And then we have the character inept from the toy box. So I'm going to save my thoughts for this on the Yooka-Laylee wrap-up, because I honestly don't know.
Okay.
If it's like a Borg type situation where they're all part of the same collective, I could see that, definitely. And that might be the only way we can explain it. But yeah.
Well, how about the secret itself? How about what happens when you finally, after all these months later, finally get to ground pound that rock outside of a pirate ship?
Yeah, he just talked to him, and then he says he's downloading his exposition, and then it never
Yeah.
happens.
You could see it as an anticlimax. That's okay.
I guess, yeah. Honestly, I mean, they couldn't like have too much in the way of paying off anything from the toy box for those who don't have the toy box. But I appreciated the connection nonetheless. It was a nice little Easter egg in a game that doesn't really have a whole lot of Easter eggs to speak of that aren't like fundamental to the collectathon or the gameplay. But it was cute.
Well, Banjo fans, people who played the Banjo-Kazooie series back in the day, we all have this shared memory of the ice key and of the mystery eggs, and I feel like this toy box connection and this secret, like, if it wasn't going to be something substantial, then, you know, it could have just been an Easter egg. It could have just been you ground pound the rock, some funny reference to the toy box happens, and that's it. Or you unlock some like a tonic that does something kind of unique and interesting.
Sure.
The fact that it's hints at further secrets and that's something that we're going to find out about down the line makes it seem like it's going to be something a lot more substantial. Makes it seem like it's going to be something more worthy of the grandeur of looking through that sheet of ice and seeing that mysterious spinning key. And I think it's, like you said earlier, it's something that games don't do anymore, is having mysteries like this. So I'm really, really intrigued to see where they're going with this.
Well, you've also got, and of course, we both haven't finished the game, so, you know, but you've got...
this whole thing could be unraveled.
You've got the pirate treasure. I don't know if you've been finding any of those.
I found a couple, yeah.
Yeah. You've got like a lot of weird little mysteries that I don't know if there's any connection. Like, what's the deal with all the giant baby skulls? Hey, have you noticed the giant baby skulls, Josh?
I don't think so, but I'm real bad at noticing things.
Okay, there's like in a lot of the worlds there are giant baby skulls that are like you can't like interact with. They're just like a line there. And I say baby skulls. I don't know if they're actually baby skulls, but they're giant skulls. And I was like, what is this hinting at? And it maybe nothing, but between that and the pirate treasure, which are also skulls, I gotta wonder. And it's really piquing my interest as far as like this greater mystery.
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction to the toy box secret. Like, where is this going?
Right.
And I think maybe it was intended to lead to like speculation by people online.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it feels like the kind of thing. Go ahead.
You've also got the mystery of the batship crazy, and is that connected to this world at all?
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but the first thing I did when I started the game was run around outside that area and try to ground pound rocks under trees, and I'm like, huh. And it wasn't until later that I was sort of clued in, no, that's in World 5. Right.
So there is this grander lore that, again, we haven't beaten the game, so, you know, if there's some sort of grand stop and swap esque, you know, sequence where Dr. Puzz pops out of the bushes and shows you Polaroids, I don't know that yet, but yeah, I am quite enjoying the ride, and I'm trying to, like, be observant of just weird things that don't really make sense in any context. Because I mean, I remember when it's, you know, almost hard to remember a time before you knew that the ice key was a deliberate secret. But I remember before, you know, you beat Banjo-Kazooie, you don't know why there's a spinning key behind there, and there's nothing to clue you in otherwise. And I like that. I like that uncertainty of not knowing. And I think, I mean, obviously I'm clued into it a little bit because I'm well aware that the team might be playing to that, but it's enjoyable for me. As somebody who loves lore and loves mysteries in games and thinks there's not enough mysteries in games nowadays, the fact that Yooka-Laylee is keeping me guessing up until the end is much appreciated.
You're going to be so surprised when it turns out that this whole secret leads up somehow to a way to unlock Luigi in Mario 64. They played the long game.
I never cared about unlocking Luigi in Super Mario 64. I just wanted to get up on that castle and see the backyard of the castle. I wanted to go to the other side of the castle and see like the back of it, and that was what was so upsetting for me.
Well, I'll tell you something that does have a fully finished side that you can turn and you can look on multiple sides of it, and that's Planety.
Nice segue, Josh. You're a pro. Okay, so I have long established in my tenure as DK Vine co-founder and editor-in-chief that one of my favorite bits in the DKU was in Banjo-Tooie when you, as characters, essentially murder the husband and wife duo of George and Mildred Ice Cube. And it's so hilariously dark and inappropriate for our protagonist to engage in. And I think this might eclipse not only in the grandeur of it, because it's a boss fight, but just in how hilariously dark it's portrayed. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, who haven't played this but don't care about spoilers, there is a character who is just kind of floating in the water, and he is a like an asteroid, or I guess a very small natural satellite named Mooney. Not to be confused with Mr. Mooney from The Lucy Show and the awards we used to give out in our letters column. But Mooney is this he's this very polite, we'll call him a moon, with a monocle, and he has organisms growing on him, and he's afraid he has life developing on him, and he wants you to help him remove this. It's itchy for him, and so he wants you to blast him with your cannons. This is when you're in the spaceship form, and so you do that. And
you are revealing things to me here, because I didn't even know you could talk to him.
Oh, you just blew him up. Yeah. No, you can. You have dialogue. Yeah, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, could you please help me out?" And you're like, "Sure." And you fire a cannonball at him, and you destroy him. And there's this like really morbid part where you just see his decapitated head sinking underneath the water. And then Yuka, basically in horror, like says to Laylee, "What have you done?" and then the boss...
Laylee, well, no, Laylee is like, "I thought you were the one controlling the cannons."
Right. A nice little clever reference to the fact that we're not really sure how this dual transformation actually works, and even the characters aren't sure. But then the boss descends upon you, and the boss is Planette, and she is another moon or planetoid, I guess, in this case. Like Pluto, and you have murdered her boyfriend. And she rightfully wants to destroy you. Yeah. What did you think about not only just the setup to this, but the actual boss fight itself?
Now, did I get the name wrong? Because you just referred to the boss as Planette, and earlier I referred to her as Planety.
Oh, I assumed it was Planette, like Annette.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe it's Planety, like she's a manatee. I mean, it's the ocean and whatnot, but that was my take on it. But
well, in any case, however you pronounce it, this was an enjoyable boss. It sort of reminds me of like a scrolling vertical shooter, because you're in the spaceship, and Planette or Planety has these like will spin around, like she has this face. It sort of reminds me of the face of the last human from Doctor Who, in terms of being this big wrinkly, yeah. But what she'll do is she'll sort of like rotate and fire different elemental attacks at you. So like you'll be what is it like? You'll like as the spaceship. We didn't really go over this earlier, but you have 3 different weapons. You have an ice weapon, you have a flamethrower, and you have a cannon that fires in spurts. And
if it shoots you, it's gonna hurt.
Exactly. And depending on what sort of side of the boss is facing you, that's the weapon that you have to use. And what was kind of funny is I actually lost to this boss the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go back and murder her boyfriend a second time, this time with full knowledge of what I was doing.
Yeah, I do wish it would let you skip that, because it does get monotonous, again, having to murder poor Mooney each and every time. As hilarious as it is.
The ability to skip cutscenes is in the patch notes.
Yeah, but I don't even know if this is considered a cutscene. This is just, I mean, you still have to do the deed to trigger Planet. Yeah. So, this was a bit hard to get the hang of control-wise at first, because, you can't reverse with the spaceship. It's much easier to control than the damn plow in World 2, but it's still kind of hard to be nimble when trying to evade her attacks. But
yeah, exactly. The spaceship isn't nimble, so when you put it in this frame of reference that it's like a vertical shooter style, and you're trying to dodge a bunch of it's a bullet hell to a certain extent. Then it is difficult to, and it's not like impossible at all.
No,
it's just like I don't think that you'd be able to play this without taking a few hits.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think each time. I died, and then actually doing it, I was like down to like 2 butterflies or something. Just I took a licking, definitely.
Yeah.
And my biggest problem though was I kept accidentally shooting the flamethrower. That would for whatever reason, the way my fingers and muscle memory was operating was I would just hit the flamethrower by instinct, and then I would be stuck shooting a long stream of fire, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And the
flamethrower was tough anyway, because being a flamethrower, it has a pretty short range. So that was when you had to sort of like circle in close to her,
mm-hmm.
and in order to attack those. So by the time you'd actually be able to hit it, it was pretty much impossible to actually get out of the way from the next volley of projectiles.
Right. But all in all, it wasn't the worst boss in the game. I enjoyed it, and I think the setup made it just worth it in the end. Like it's kind of hard to divorce the actual story mechanics of why this boss is fighting you from the gameplay itself, because the former is so enjoyable that the latter is kind of inconsequential to me as a result. But anyway, so let's take the few calls we have about this world, and then we will give our final thoughts. And then I can go do more work for E3 and maybe sometime fall asleep. I'm going to have another Angry Orchard, though. All right.
Good day, lads. Scratch 69 here, how's it cracking, eh? Oh, this 5th world. It's bloody beautiful. I just love the atmosphere. Where, just even before you go into the book, it's, this cosmic bloody shenanigans where, this purpley, Milky Way sort of thing, like, it's amazing. This world is gorgeous. Bloody oath. Anyway, so once you enter the world, something I noticed about these lads is how destructive they are. I think this is the most evident of any of the worlds for Yooka-Laylee, is when they fuck up the moon, like in Doctor Who, there's a title called Kill the Moon, and mate, they murder the bloody moon's orbiting moon, and then they just bloody murder the moon, like, in one gushing explosion. It's just bloody amazing. That's one thing. And then another thing is where they pretty much enable a whole bloody race to be invaded by another race for the galactic conquest if you destroy the weapon system. So, I mean, that's virtually genocide, isn't it? It's like a Donkey Kong Country 2 sort of thing where you've just enabled the genocide of another race. So, bloody hell. You thought Diddy Kong had mental problems at the end of DKC too. Well, I'll tell you what. Eventually, Yooka-Laylee will look back on those days and be like, oh shit. We just, we did that. So, bloody Yooka-Laylee, they're mass murderers. And they make me proud. Anyway, have a good one, lads. Bye.
Thank you for the call, Scraps. Much appreciative of how murderous Yooka-Laylee got in this world. And yeah, I hadn't considered the whole aspect with the Blamphibians and the fact that Yooka-Laylee allowed them to be essentially invaded, and the comparisons to the last episode we did about Diddy Kong and bringing up the whole accidental genocide thing. Yep. Perhaps another titular duo here who accidentally caused a race to be wiped out in the end. But who's to say? Maybe that will be explored in a future game. But yeah, definitely Platonic played with the whole moral ambiguity thing here quite knowingly, and it is appreciative of. It never gets like horribly dark like it does with Conker, where Conker just kills a baby dinosaur because it's the easy thing to do. Because at least Yuka shows remorse for their actions, which, it's necessary for them to be likable. But I like when Rare and now Platonic engages in the little darker sides of what terrible actions must be taken in a video game in order to progress. Anyway, thank you for the call, Scraps. And let's hear what caller 2 has to say.
Hey, how's it going? You know how that one Blamphibian who's lifting those weights has those weights like around his feet, and those weights like roll around on their own? What's up with that?
Okay, so Josh, I don't know if you tried this. I don't know what this caller is saying. So the weightlifting Blamphibian, he has weights at his feet. Apparently you can move those around by yourself. I never tried that.
What do you jog my memory? I don't know if I did this or not. What do you do with the weightlifting Blamphibian?
It's the whole test of strength thing where you have to get the cannonball.
Okay.
But I don't know. This caller was saying you can move the weights around. I haven't tried it. Assuming he's correct, I think guess it's like anything that's really not bolted down in this game, where you can or too heavy, where you can kind of kick it and move it around, like a lot of the paint cans in Shipwreck Creek, or some of the
sure. That's
ancillary stuff.
I would imagine that's probably true. It's probably just part of the way the physics engine works.
Yeah, maybe he's asking why you can move them around if they're weights. Are they implying that there actually isn't much weight to them, and this weightlifter is a fraud? Yeah. I don't know.
Or that Yuka and Laylee are just that strong.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have to try, and that's the fun thing about Yooka-Laylee is there's stuff I'm sure I'm missing, and I can't wait to go. I can't wait for my playthrough once I beat the game and start a new save file and just go in and try everything again, but this time with a firmer grasp of how the game works. And I'm excited to do that because I feel like I might enjoy it even more the second time around. But I don't know. Maybe I'll hate it. We'll see. One more call.
All right.
Hello, it's Rob Buster here, and this call is in regards to the Yooka-Laylee World 5 discussion. Some of my other calls lately have not been. But one thing I wanted to say, first of all, it was a great Ratchet and Clank level, really good tribute to that. I noticed, I felt like this whole game, all the levels were like tribute to some other platformer, anything but what Rare made. Well, and Tribal Topics, I guess, is like Donkey Kong 64, but then you've got, what was the second one, the Snow World, which feels like a total Mario place. I don't say that as a bad thing. I like Mario, I didn't buy all the new Super Mario Brothers games. That got pretty stale, but, anyway, then you have the third level, the Swamp, which felt a lot more like a Rayman 2 Swamp than a Bubblegoo Marsh or anything. Well, 4, the casino, obviously it's like Casinopolis in Sonic Adventure. And so that was pretty cool. I mean, and then Galleon Galaxy is basically like Ratchet and Clank. I mean, it looks just like it came straight out of Ratchet and Clank. You even got this transformation with all these crazy weapons like Ratchet and Clank. I also wanted to bring up, I have a theory about what Playtonic's next game might be, because they said a character from their next game would be in this game, I believe. There's that space bounty hunter lady who has you like blow up the defense system of the frog aliens. You're thinking that that's a good thing to do to like rescue people or something, and then it turns out she just wants to steal their artifacts, whatever that is. I'm wondering if she will be the protagonist of their next game, and it'll be a Rare throwback shooter, kind of a Jet Force Gemini, perfect dark pastiche, maybe with a little bit of Secret Agent, copyright neutral, 00-digit Secret Agent action in a shooter. Anyway, what do you think about that? Do you have any alternative ideas for what character might be in their next game or a future game? Thanks. Talk to you later.
No, Rob, you got it. As you might have heard before we even got to your call, we had the same notion about Shell, probably Playtonic's next game. But yeah, I think it's almost all but confirmed in my own head now that, yeah, that's what they're going to do next. And I want to bring this up, though, as far as this call goes, because I think I'm with the right person. I've been comparing these worlds to, past Rare games. We were doing that in this episode, but Rob here brought up that Galleon Galaxy felt like a Ratchet and Clank world, and then he brought up that Capital Casino felt like a world from Sonic Adventure, which maybe you could speak to that, and said Moody Maze Marsh felt like Rayman, and Tribal Stack Tropics felt like Donkey Kong. I don't know. I don't know if they were like deliberately throwing to other franchises or not outside of the Banjo realm, but I'm the wrong person to ask.
Well, that is an interesting way of looking at it. I haven't really played much Ratchet and Clank, so I can't speak to that for this world specifically. For the Sonic Adventure comparison, I'm probably actually the wrong guy to ask, because I know Sonic Adventures Casinopolis so well that I'm like, oh no, Capital Casino is nothing like that. Tribal Stack Tropics being reminiscent of Donkey Kong, though, like, it's
I don't
an
really see
interesting way
that.
of looking
I don't really
at
see
things.
that.
But I wouldn't really say that it's anything deliberate as much as it is just like the fact that you're going to have tropes, the fact that you're going to have like stage tropes. Because you could easily say that World 2, it's like Ice Cap Zone from Sonic 3,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I did see a little bit of it, but like I was like, oh, it's like Ice Cap Zone there, because that's just my frame of reference for this stuff.
Right. Yeah, for Tribal Stack Tropics, it felt more like a Mayhem Temple and Tui to me than anything. Definitely really didn't feel like Donkey Kong, which always just felt more like, at least Rare's take on it was just more jungles and less like ancient gods in temples and whatnot.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country, as we know, had just jungle levels. That's pretty much all the game was.
I mean, as far as Sakurai is concerned, sure. Yeah, but see, Josh, I thought since you're such a well-rounded gamer in comparison to me, I thought you'd be able to speak to his point, but I guess not. What good are you? So anyway, thank you for the call, Rob. I think we're all in agreement now that Playtonic's next game, very good chance it's going to be Shell or Shell as the protagonist.
Well, now we need to come up with a hypothetical name for it, like we do with Donkey Kong Country Baja Blast.
Oh,
just a way that you can refer like a plane force Sagittarius. That's my entry.
I like that. I would have gone with Cancer, but sure. Anyway, Josh, what are your final thoughts on Galleon Galaxy?
Like I said earlier, this was, in most ways, I think you can look at this world and you can see everything that's great and everything that's not so great about Yooka-Laylee. But it is, to me, the most memorable, and like I said earlier, it's like they're firing on all cylinders right now. It's something that not a lot of games get to do nowadays because of the way the development works, where they'll sort of peter out of content as you approach the end of it. And this one doesn't feel like that at all. This one to me feels like here's the development team. They're seasoned. They got the machine well oiled. They got it going, and this level is the result. It's Yooka-Laylee at its best, and it while also still showcasing the problems inherent to the game.
Yeah, I agree. My take is pretty similar to yours. I say every world is my favorite world after I play it, so at this point, I don't know how much I trust my own instincts. I think I'm just easily impressed by the shiny bauble in front of me. So maybe I should withhold at this point, like proclaiming that this is my favorite world. It's definitely my... Is it even my favorite aesthetic? Because I really like Capital Casino. I'm weird. But I think this is the aesthetic that I'm most primed to enjoy ordinarily. Sure. And I think that I appreciate Galleon Galaxy more than any world. I'll say that much. I appreciate the moxie it took to come up with this and to execute it. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll save...
Yeah, I mean... Something can be your favorite and like not necessarily be what you think is the best, because I would say that Moody Maze Marsh is still the better world.
See, yeah, I don't even know how... It was my favorite at the time, but I don't even know how I feel about it now, just because it's so hard to navigate. But again, It has maze in the title, so I can't criticize that. They covered their asses. So anyway. Galleon Galaxy, I like it. All right, I'm done with this episode. E3 time. You can leave, Josh. Go, leave. All right,
You keep geeking. Oh no, not this time.
No.
Oh.
Angry Orchard. It'll stop your.
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.